Alright, so in this part of the video, I'm going to be going over how to iron the front side of the shirt. So as you can see here, this is the left front part of the shirt, and everything that I'm going to go over here applies to the right half, except for the fact that as you can see here, on this side we have the buttonholes, on the other side we have the buttons. So when you iron, you're going to have to go around the buttons, but that's the only major difference in the sides. So the first thing that I'm going to go over is how to lay out the shirt on the ironing board. When we're ironing our shirt, we never want to use this part of the ironing board here. There's no reason to, because the square end is much more aligned for what we're trying to do. So when we put our shirt on the ironing board, we want to kind of lay it out like this. As you can see, this seam here, I made sure that all of it is on top of the ironing board, so none of the front part hangs off. I haven't ironed this shirt before I started recording, so it's a little bit wrinkled, not too bad though. We want to make sure the collar is flat. You can see the crease here has already been made, but if you haven't done a good job of ironing your shirt in the past, you're going to have to really find where you want that. You want it to kind of make an angle that goes right above the button, where the bend is even with half of the button. So if you can see that there. Under here, same thing. We want it flat, get as many of the wrinkles out before you start ironing, because if you start ironing and there's a wrinkle like this on it, you're just going to iron the wrinkle in. But if you smooth it out first, it makes it a lot easier. Also notice that this seam here, which is where your epaulette goes on, if I fold this part over here, that's completely on the ironing board. So basically the entire front left of the shirt is on. So I'm going to grab my iron. The iron's not turned on. Let me switch my hands really quick because ironing lefty is just a sin. Basically, you want to iron everything in the same direction. So once I start ironing, I'm pushing all of the wrinkles towards the end of the shirt. So I like to go towards the bottom of the shirt, and you're just slowly getting the wrinkles out. Now what I do at this point when I'm first ironing is I will have just taken my shirt out of the washing machine. So the shirt is soaking wet right now, which means that I have to leave the iron on each part for a little bit longer than I normally would to get the water out. Now the reason you would want to do this is because putting your shirt in the dryer causes a lot of wrinkling, and that's just more work for you. So this way you can kind of build your shirt from scratch. This part here is a pain to iron, but you should be able to get most of it out. Now, here's a big part that causes wrinkles. As you can see right here, I purposely ironed down on this flap to show you what happens. You get this little wrinkle here. It's like a crease, but you don't want that. So what you have to do is come in with your iron under this part. So you would fold this up and then iron under. It's kind of hard to do without having someone else hold the camera. But you would iron it out first. Then when you come back to iron this top part, you make sure that you don't iron on the flap itself. You iron in this area and in this area, but you don't want to iron on the edge of the flap. And that's how you don't get that wrinkle. Now over here, what's important is iron under the collar first, this area, and then press down on this crease. You really want to press down on that so you get a nice sharp crease. Now, once we're done ironing out the water and the shirt's completely dry, you want to make sure there's no wrinkles on it. We're going to come back with spray starch. So when I come back, I'll have the bottle of spray starch. All right, so I'm back. I've got my bottle of spray starch. This is what it looks like. Basically, what's going to happen is you've gotten all the wrinkles out, but if you were to just take your shirt and crumble it up, all of the wrinkles would be back. So the spray starch kind of stiffens up the shirt. And the reason you want that is because the stiffer the shirt is, the less likely that wrinkles are going to develop as you wear it. So you're going to take the shirt. I'm not going to actually spray it because I don't want to ruin my shirt. But I'll come over here and you're going to spray it like this, just a light coat. You want to get the entire shirt, but you don't want to drench any one part of the shirt. So you're going to spray the entire shirt like this. And then you're just going to basically iron it until the wet spots from the starch are dry. And you iron it the same way as I told you before. You get the underside first, then you press down on the crease. You don't want to iron the flaps here. Everything is the same as before. You're just getting all the starch out. So that's everything for the front. I'm going to flip it over to the back. And okay, so this is the proper setup for ironing the back of the shirt. Again, you're going to use the square part because you can see how this edge is just kind of perfect for it. And just like last time, we're going to take our iron and we're going to pull all the wrinkles to the bottom of the shirt. Now, you can kind of see that most of the wrinkles there went away and I don't even have the heat turned on. So once we have the heat turned on, that's going to make a big difference. Getting these wrinkles out here, these form around the arm just because of the way that the sleeve here is made. So those are a tough one to get out. So you spend a lot of time on that part in particular if you want it to look good. My shirt unfortunately came with this, whatever this is, and there's no way of getting rid of that. So hopefully your shirt doesn't have that. Another tricky place is down here where the seams come together. Spend a lot of time there. What you're going to notice is that you can't fit the entire back of the shirt on. This part hangs off. So what you're going to do is after you iron this, a lot more neatly than I'm about to do, but you just pull this side over until you get the entire back on. And then you just iron it again right here. So you would come one more time. You're going to have to iron the middle part twice, basically, because you'll cause some wrinkles when you're moving the shirt over, but there's nothing you can do about that. And then you're going to do this one more time with the starch on. So next I'm going to do the sleeves and then the collar. All right, so the next thing we're going to cover is the sleeves. So basically you're going to lay the shirt flat like this on the front. And what I would do is do the sleeves after you've gotten the water out from the shirt, but before you starch it. Because you don't want, when you lay the shirt like this, you might expose it to more wrinkles. So you want to make sure you iron this again after laying it like this. But the sleeves, we kind of need laid like this. So what we're going to do first is make sure that the crease up here is perfect. So we want this crease to end right at the back of the epaulet. Now, obviously I haven't ironed this shirt yet, so it's not perfect yet, but right about there is where we want the crease. Now we just fold that down all the way across so that it's flat. Again, this is really hard to do with one hand, but I think you're getting the idea. So we get that right. You also want to make sure that the sleeve, because we're kind of ironing on 2 layers of material right now, doesn't kind of go over itself and make wrinkles. Again, you can't really see because I'm feeling it on the back. Basically, once we get that crease, I know it's wrong right now, but we would basically just iron it down like that. You want to iron it until it's nice and crisp, and then you move on to the other side of the shirt. But before you do that, I take a little piece of styrofoam, and I like to put it inside. I know I just put it under, but pretend it's on the inside. I can't really do all of this with just 2 hands. If I had a cameraman, that would be very nice. But basically when I'm ironing now, I'm just ironing the top layer, and I'm not causing any wrinkles on the back side. The crease on the bottom is almost as important as the one on the top. Basically, if you get those 2 creases right, the rest of the sleeve is going to look fine. It's just the wrinkling along here that you have to get rid of, and then any creases that are in here. Then you're just going to flip the shirt over. So I like to do front, front, and then back, back. So you're going to do that, and you really need to make sure that the creases line up, because if your creases don't line up, again, I pre-ironed this, so you see how there's kind of a double crease action in there. It might be kind of hard to see on this, but you don't want to end up with a double crease. That's where you have 2 lines running down your sleeve. But if you get the creases to line up perfectly, you get this really defined sharp line, and it really makes you stand out. So next I'm going to move on to the collar, and that'll be the last part for the shirt. Okay, so now we're going over the collar. And the collar is actually the first thing you want to iron. because as you can see, the way you have to kind of put it on wrinkles everything else. So straight out of the wash, we want to just get the water out and then starch it. And that reminds me of something I forgot to mention with the sleeves. The sleeves we are using starch on, so it's iron the water out, then starch, and that'll get you a really sharp holding sleeve. So with the collar, we want to make sure that these wrinkles here are out to like the best of our capabilities before we start ironing. And then once we start going in with the iron, the first time it'll get out, again, I don't have heat on or steam, but once you get it flat, no wrinkles, then you go in with starch and really iron the starch out because you don't want to have any splotches on your collar. That's basically everything when it comes to the shirt. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the iron. So this is a really crappy iron. My good iron broke, so I've been on this one for a while because I'm still looking for a better iron to replace my old one. But every iron that's at least somewhat good has a little dial on the back here, and this controls the heat of the iron. Basically, listen to the heat of the iron. There's a dial on it that tells you what type of material. You can't really see, but this shirt is made of cotton, so you should be using the cotton setting. But there's a couple of exceptions to that. When you're first getting the water out, you might want to turn up the heat a little bit, but move the iron quicker than you normally would, and that'll get the water out quicker. When you're using starch, you want to turn the heat down to a lower setting, because if you bake in the starch at too high of a temperature, you're going to stain your shirt. So those are just a couple of tips for how to iron your shirt and how to use an iron. Make sure you're also using steam. Fill up the iron with water. As you can see, I have a little bit of water in, but not enough. So yeah, you want to make sure you have steam the whole time. If you run out of water halfway through ironing, put more in. Don't cheat yourself with the water. So that's everything there is to know about ironing a shirt.